clearly people are looking for personality on LinkedIn because everything else is Googleable.
Rue, start the show! I'm Beatrice, your badass branding strategy girl, and welcome to the Art of Branding Badassery podcast. Rue expects your best branding game. You don't want to miss out on 95% of your audience, do you? Damn, girl, is my reaction to pretty much every LinkedIn post this girl puts out. Today, we're talking about positioning your brand with differentiation. And I've got the Cleopatra of copy that can turn words into gold and marketing into magic. She's not just a content writer, but a creator. She's a force to be reckoned with. Seriously, though, she's about to get married and probably has all of LinkedIn helping her out with wedding prep. Please welcome Nourhan Elsayed. Thank you so much for joining us, girl.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And speaking of the wedding, the last update is that I asked everyone to give me all their wedding playlist recommendations. So it's always nice to mix wedding planning with work. Less work for me.
Exactly. You have your loyal subjects, and we wouldn't want to get in the way of that. But no, congratulations on the upcoming wedding. Anyhow, have you found any surprising parallels between marketing and wedding planning?
I have. So with both, you have to kind of be dealing with a lot of different aspects. So especially now that I am working on launching my marketing agency. So I'm working with many different freelancers and trying to, get to know all of them and pick the ones that I do want to work with. And it's pretty much exactly the same as wedding planning because you're talking to different vendors and different caterers and you're trying the cakes and you're trying you're checking out venues and all of that. So it's pretty much it's a hassle both ways. And trying to get both done at the same time has not been a walk in the park, but getting there.
It is an intense journey, like very time consuming.
Yeah, it truly is.
So, you've shared with me about your journey of accepting your diagnosis and treatment for bipolar disorder. How has that personal experience influenced your approach to how you position yourself and your brand?
So with bipolar, there's two sides to it, basically. Hence the name bipolar. You have the depression and you have the mania. Most people are more familiar with depression, where it's like, chronic feelings of just sadness and, just grief and you're low. But then what people don't realize is that mania is the complete opposite of that. So you're all the way up, you're feeling euphoria, you're happy, you're on top of the world, you think you're invincible. I remember my first manic episode, I would literally be crossing the street and not looking because I think that I have like some kind of superpower and cars cannot hit me. So that's pretty much mania for you. And the thing with bipolar people is that as terrifying as mania is, when you come down and you finish that episode, we are always chasing that. We're always chasing that high again, because you want to feel that, that those feelings of happiness and the euphoria and all of that. But because back then I wasn't diagnosed, I didn't know what was happening. My first manic episode kind of just happened because I got a misdiagnosis for depression and I was medicated for that. So that kind of triggered my first manic episode and I didn't know what was happening. After that, after the crash came and everything, it was really tough for a while, and trying to find that little glimpse of happiness, just to look for it took a very long time. So when I finally accepted that, okay, I think something is wrong, because a therapist, like my therapist back then in 2019 when I had my first episode, she's like, you need a new diagnosis. I'm like, no, I'm not bipolar, I don't have a chronic illness, no, that's not the case. So eventually I did get diagnosed last year and I did get into treatment and everything. And things stabilized since. But I think because of those experiences, especially because of how low the depression can be, I just never want anyone to feel that way. And
Mm,
because I, as a bipolar person, I am chasing that mania. I am chasing those feelings of euphoria all the time. I think I found a way to give myself those feelings by making other people happy, by making sure that other people can't
yeah,
feel, or like not can, but like if someone is going through depression or if someone is going through some kind of sadness, I like to know that even for those like 2 minutes where they're reading a post of mine or when they're like seeing a video that I post or, whatever it is, I can make them
mm,
smile just a little bit. I can have some kind of positive impact on their day because I know that like those little things were the things that kept me going during those really bad depressive episodes. So I think that's kind of how my bipolar and just accepting treatment for that and realizing that okay, I can't just always be chasing mania. And because with that, if you're going to be chasing the mania, you're going to have to deal with depression, and that is just
yeah,
a whole other thing. I think
yeah.
going through that, it had to made me find different ways to get those feelings without potentially affecting my life and putting myself in danger.
And that offers, you bringing that happiness to others, and that is a massive differentiation in the way that you present yourself, you know, with your content. And speaking of your content, I mean, I've seen you drop massive carousels, like 75 pages.
Yeah.
And the story you tell in them, that many of us end up reading all the way to the end, like all 75 pages. What role do you think storytelling plays in differentiating yourself in this space?
I think it's that people are just bored of scrolling through their feeds and seeing a lot of the similar stuff where it's like everyone is always trying to be like, okay, education, like how to, and then bullet points and giving you exactly what you're supposed to do this, and this is how you're supposed to write your CTAs and all of that. I realized very quickly that's what I used to do at the very beginning. When I started on LinkedIn 9 months ago, I thought that this is what was expected of me, that I had to like just
Mm,
keep shoving educational content and case studies and all of that.
yeah.
And I quickly got bored of it. I quickly realized, okay, I'm just kind of the same as everyone else. And I realized that people are looking for something different. They're looking for more fun. They're looking to laugh because at the end of the day, LinkedIn is still a social platform. No one wants to be scrolling on their feeds and just always looking at like, educational content, and just it gets pretty bland pretty quickly. So I figured, okay, let me try to have like do a little shift there. And I realized that the more I personalize my posts and my carousels and my videos, the more I get comments and DMs where it's just like, you're a breath of fresh air, or, I like that you can have that, a break in the feed where it's like they know that they can, even if it's a 75-page carousel, they're going to be scrolling, they're going to be having fun throughout it. And that's what I always try to do with carousels and videos, anything that is pretty long to consume. I always try to make sure, okay, it stays engaging. I can always get a few smiles out of them if it's pretty long so that, they can actually keep going through it. And I think, I managed to make that work a little bit because even though with a 75-page carousel, you're not going to be like, you
Mm,
can't expect, hundreds and hundreds of people to want to scroll through it. But the people who do, they're always pretty happy that they did, at the end of it, where it's like, okay, I got a lot of value, but I also really enjoyed reading this. So it's like, okay, so I think I
yeah.
did my job. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's just making sure that you keep them engaged, you keep them smiling, you keep them, you want to position yourself as someone that they that makes them happy, because if there's a lot of people trying to teach you stuff on LinkedIn, especially on LinkedIn, and you're
Exactly.
competing
And
against so many. You're not just competing against other creators on LinkedIn, you're competing against Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Netflix and real life and friends and family. You have a very small amount of times to get that attention and keep it. So you want to make sure that, okay, they know when they see your name, that they're going to be getting something out of it, whatever that value is, whether they're going to be learning something, whether they're going to be smiling, whether they're going to be whatever it is. They know that when they see you up there, they're going to, click see more and know that they were like, okay, I'm happy I did that. And I think that's kind of how I approach my content. I want someone at the end of it to be like, hey, I'm so glad I clicked see more. I'm just like, yes, okay, cool.
So, what tips would you give to somebody to not do carousels like yours? Because at the end of the day, you're targeting a specific audience, those people that do open it, right? You can't target everyone. But what tips would you give to people who want to really show their persona and to really differentiate themselves, be it in carousels or in their content or in their brands?
Mhm. So one of the things that, it's pretty broad, but I guess one thing is like really think about before hitting post, is it possible that someone already made this before? Is it possible that someone scrolling through their feed already saw this today? So if you're out there giving copywriting tips, and you're like clear over clever and all of that, how many people have probably used that phrase today? A lot, so scratch that, take it away, find a different idea. And as cliche as it sounds, I think
Yeah.
being yourself is literally the best way to go about it. Personally, as I said, when I first started, I was like, posting case studies and just shoving marketing information out there, and talking about the first advertisement. And I noticed when I would make the post, and then I always included the PS, and that's where I would like show just a little bit of personality, people would comment more on the PS versus the actual post. And that had me realizing, okay, people don't want to have, all of that stuff shoved down their throats. They don't want
Mm.
to have another marketer or another copywriter or another, whatever it is, telling them the same thing that they already saw through their feeds today. So they would always end up commenting on the PS. So when I started, putting a little bit more personality in my posts, changing a little bit away, like moving away from the educational content, doing a little bit more personal. That's when I actually saw, my engagement go up. The my DMs started getting more crowded, and all of that. And that's when I quickly realized, okay, so clearly people are looking for personality on LinkedIn because everything else is Googleable. I don't think that there's really much that you can provide, on LinkedIn that someone can't find in a newsletter or by Googling a simple question or on YouTube. And,
So true.
much as, yes, it's important to, you want to keep repeating your message over and over again because that's what you're here for. You're on LinkedIn so that you can grow your professional network and get clients and,
Yeah.
get like gigs and jobs and all of that. So it's important to do that, but it's also important to remember that, that information is everywhere, but there's not that many. There's only one of you out there. There's only one you, and that makes you unique. So like actually take advantage of that versus just doing the same thing that the first page of Google can do for someone. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And is that where hashtag Cockroaches United came from?
Yeah. Cockroaches United started out as just a complete brain fart. It was one of those posts where I didn't even think about it that much. And it was my first viral post or like semi-viral post. I had a completely different post planned, but then I was like so sick of always checking my notifications. And this was at the very beginning where it's like I would think that someone commented on a post of mine, but instead it would be like, this person and 560 other people commented on this person's post, and it's like, okay, so it's got
Oh,
nothing to do with me, I guess. And I was feeling that like low point, so I was just I made a post where I'm like, okay, I just talked about how I'm literally a cockroach on LinkedIn. I'm literally a nothing, basically. And that I'm
Yeah.
here to support my fellow cockroaches. And at the end of the post, I'm like, okay, I pronounce myself the queen cockroach of LinkedIn. And somehow that caught on. People really liked that. And it went, pretty like it. I don't want to say viral because, I wouldn't say a few hundred likes is viral, but to me back then when I was getting like 20 likes a post, that to me was like, okay, like something's happening here. And after that, I made the hashtag in that post cockroaches united, and I didn't use
Yeah.
it for a while, but like every time I would make like a funny community post or something and I would leave the cockroaches united, people would be like, can we make this a thing? So it just became a thing. So it just became my hashtag. And that's part of you want to have your own personal hashtag so that your posts are all in one place and all of part of
Hmm.
the LinkedIn strategy. And I didn't realize that cockroaches united would end up being mine, but somehow it just worked. And it's one
Pretty
of the
unique. It's pretty unique. And has anyone else used it yet?
no, 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 I don't think so, because how many people out there are actually gonna call themselves a cockroach?
In reference to you, be like, oh,
Oh, definitely.
with
Like
this
I
post.
had a friend send me a video, a TED video, about cockroaches and why we can't seem to get rid of them. I have people giving me cockroach fun facts. It's every single post I make, I get at least one comment, someone asking me, "What is that Cockroaches United thing?" So I have to like link my old post that was the birth of Cockroaches United. So it's definitely a nice conversation starter there. And
Exactly.
yeah, many people just know me as I'm the cockroach person. I have one person who literally ever since then always comments on my posts every once in a while. He would just put cockroach emojis and disappear. And then come back a few posts later, a few cockroach emojis and disappear. So it's like I'll take it.
Wait up, there's cockroach emojis.
Yeah.
No. So I mean that's really interesting because you see on LinkedIn, right, that everybody has their own little, I mean, the people that are memorable, they have something about their brand, be it like, Luke with his pizza loving or giving away, bacon hating, Roman with like the flamingo, ruin my branding. There's always something a little bit extra
Mhm.
for that little bit of spice or that little bit of differentiation that makes you stand out.
Mhm.
Are you gonna keep it, or are you gonna like try to shift it to something else?
I think I'm definitely going to keep Cockroaches United. So, for example, a lot of people knew me for the past 9 months as Cleopatra of Copy, and that kind of just came
Hmm.
up because I am Egyptian. So, it kind of, I just wrote it and I put the little Eye of Horus because it's my tattoo. So, I'm like, you know what? It works. But I quickly
Both
realized,
of them, both the Cleopatra and the cockroach at the same time,
yeah,
or
and I realized that by having my headline be Cleopatra of Copy, that positioned me as a copywriter. And that's not what I do. Like I'm a marketer first and foremost. So I actually like recently just deleted the entire headline. I'm working on a new one right now that actually, says more about what I do. So, I think that was one of the things for a very long time that would catch people's attention, and they would
yeah,
text me over it and people would connect with me because of that, because the headline was unique. So I think it's like just having those little things that people can always like remember you by. So, and something that relates to you. So, for example, your Rue, anyone who would like see that, it's like, okay, one, badass, two, Australian, makes sense. And for me, it's like, okay, the Cleopatra of Copy, the Eye of Horus, that was like a little ode to my background, which I'm Egyptian. And I don't know. I think you want to put a little bit of you in there that also adds a little bit of like, a little spice. Gives that little where it's like, okay, yeah, I know this person. They're unique, they do their thing, you know. So whether that's a color or an element or a name, or as you said, the for example, Roman was actually the person who gave me this idea. Yeah,
What?
our first conversation, he was just we were talking about the flamingos and the Cleopatra and all of that, and I'm just like, and he has the flamingo shirt, so I'm just like, yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna find a shirt with like the Eye of Horus on it. So he was just like, you can just make one. And I'm like,
Ah.
that is a very smart point. So I got a hoodie and I got this embroidered on it, and I'm like, perfect, thank you for that. So I sent it to him, and I'm just like, thanks for that idea, by the way, you're rock, bro. You know, so you want to
So
find
cool.
something like that, you know, you want to find something that people are like, yes, that's Beatrice. You are not going to find another kangaroo with a bat and sunglasses anywhere else, not just on LinkedIn, just anywhere else on the internet. You know, that's one thing that really like differentiates you and gets you out there. And that's not even besides having your brand colors and your fonts and all of that. Those keeping those consistent is a whole different story. But you want to
So
have just that
true.
little thing that really makes you stand out. And
So there's one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show. And that question is, what is the biggest societal norm that you want to push back on and teach others about in general?
I don't want to like make it sound cliche or whatever, but I think it would be just how women continue to be treated professionally, because
Mm,
that's one thing that I personally struggled with. I quick backstory, I studied in America, you know, and I moved over there when I was 17. I was literally a kid, and I'm just like, you know, I want a better future for myself. So I went there, I got a degree, I did internships and worked part time, and, you know, my CV was full. And then when I moved back here in 2019 and I got my degree and everything, I moved back to Saudi Arabia. I quickly realized that I can't get hired, you know, because I'm a foreign woman.
yeah.
So even though I was born and raised here and I lived my entire life here, I can't get hired except, you know, in four industries, which is a doctor or a teacher or a housekeeper at a hotel or a domestic worker. You know, those are the only four places that I can work at. And I do marketing. So, and that's where my degree is from. That's what my experience is. And I applied to
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of jobs and I would hear nothing back, versus my male equivalent would have been snatched off the market right away. That person would have been making six figures by now, you know, with their the experience and the expertise, versus, you know, me. I had to start out freelancing, and my first client paid me $150, you know, for three social platforms. I was working 70 hours a week. And to
Yeah.
this day, I still struggle with that because, you know, we see it not just, you know, in real life, but we see it on LinkedIn as well. All you look at the favicon list, for example, the top names, men, you know, mostly males, mostly, you know, from the West. And that's kind of what I always see all the times whenever someone is like, tag your favorite creators. Again, like 70-80% of them are men. And I think it's kind of like they only add a few women in there just to pass the Bechdel test. And yeah, that's one of the things that it really gets on my nerves, because as much as
Yeah.
just a society as a whole, we try to think, okay, we're progressing. Women are, you know, starting to get recognized more for that they're equals, you know, it's we're still a long way from that. And I don't like that people are just trying to make it seem that we're there, because we're not there. There's still a huge wage gap. We still have to work twice as hard as our male equivalents to get people to take us seriously. And you know, that's one of the things that I wish would be talked about more, without feeling like you're gonna have someone be like, hey, get over it, you know, because you
Yeah.
definitely get a lot of that. And you know, again, you see it on LinkedIn all the time. Everyone that has been banned, for example, that I know, they've been female so far, because they would say something, or they would say an opinion, regarding gender roles or equal rights or anything like that, and someone would always get offended and report them. You see that happening a lot, but you really have to focus on it to actually notice what's going on. And I think that's one of the things that I really wish people would, really, really talk about more and start to work on more, so that we can actually start progressing as a society.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you again for joining, Nourhan. How can people reach you?
Well, they can definitely reach me on my page on LinkedIn, so at Nourhan
Mhm.
Elsayed. You can also follow me on Instagram at the eSocial Butterfly. And there's my website, also the eSocialButterfly.com. Unfinished yet, but hopefully it will be. So yeah.
Thanks, yeah. Thank you so much. Those details will also be in the episode description. And drop any questions you like answered about this show in comments on LinkedIn or otherwise. And of course, you don't want to miss out on 95% of your audience, do you?